Hello, world.
Does anybody else have any what's that they wanted to do?
God damn it! I posted so many things on Facebook and Google Plus this week, and I completely forgot to add them.
Pretty
to
much
the
with
thing.
you can pretty much take anything you've posted and paste it in there because almost everything you post is a what?
Post and paste.
I loved the 120. What was it, 123 lies of Alex Jones or whatever it was?
Yes, that was great.
That guy. That guy.
Over and over.
I want to see a debate between Bowler and Jones one day. That would be so fantastic.
That'll never happen.
Just work him up into a lather. Eventually, he'd have a fucking coronary. That guy gets so worked up.
He'd charge a few tens of thousands of dollars for it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, Alex Jones can afford that.
No. Alex Jones would charge other people.
No. I'm saying Mike Bowler is the one that's worth the $10,000. Not yeah.
I don't get humor, John.
It was kind of deadpan, you know. All right, let me get my Audacity running, and we can do this thing.
Okay. I am.
That's what she said.
Giggity.
Heyo. I am on the fly adding a couple things to the what's here.
What?
What?
We are prepared. We're professionals.
Yeah, if you look at these notes, that certainly bears truth, doesn't it?
What notes?
What are you guys going to talk about after page 1? Fuck, I don't know.
How come I'm using an older version of Audacity than this was recorded with? Okay.
Time traveling?
I must have accidentally downloaded the wrong thing when I reset this.
Bah.
Okay, I'll do that later.
It shows 2 Brandys just entered here. Brandy's here twice. Giggity.
People always ask me,
that
what
was
would I do
a
if I cloned
stretch.
myself?
Her and her clone are here. I gotta go.
People always ask me, what would I do if I cloned myself? I'd fuck me so hard.
Which one of the clones would look better tucked is the question.
Holy shit. No.
Well, see, one of them shaved and the other one went full on au naturel.
I would be the evil twin that was not shaved.
I'm out of here.
You can have the evil Cartman goatee.
Yep.
Ooh, what the? Alrighty.
All right. We all ready to roll?
No.
Like a dinner roll.
God. To the joy camp with you. Nice Ingsoc logo. Like it.
Yep. We love Big Brother podcast.
Mm-hmm. That's our story, and we're sticking to it.
Yep. Big Brother is good. Big Brother helps us.
Big Brother is watching you. Big Brother loves you. Big Brother, Big Brother. It's funny, every time I read
It's all starting to sound incesty, isn't it? I'm just saying.
I find new things in there, new concepts that I'd missed the first time through. Kind of interesting.
In what?
In 1984.
All right, are we ready to go now? Everybody good? I am going to start my recording.
I'm recording.
And I'm recording.
All right. Senor McElroy,
Yes.
whenever you are ready, sync us up.
Let's see. We're going to sync up if Big Brother is watching you. So, on the count of 3, I should probably start recording. Everybody recording? We good?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We good.
Okay. The count of 3, say Big Brother is watching you. 1, 2, 3. Big Brother
is watching you.
In the bathroom.
Giggity.
Welcome to the Irreverent Skeptics Podcast. I'm your host, John Ombie. Joining me today on July 12th, 2014 are Mike Bowler,
Hello.
Michael McElroy,
Ahoy, hoy.
or no.
No Russian troops yet.
Brandy Madison, who's listening from the Joy Camp. And Dumbass.
What's up?
Today we'll be talking about our dear Big Brother and how we've always been at war with East Asia, those bastards. We are the dead.
We are the
We
dead.
are the dead.
So, Mike Buller, you gonna tell us a little bit about 1984?
Yeah.
What was a big hit in 1984?
Big hit in 1984. I don't know. I was probably stoned or something at the time. It's the classic work by George Orwell, 1984, and has been used by many, if not all, writers and radio commentators who promote the idea that the United States is being turned into an Illuminati New World Order dictatorship run by the military-industrial elites. Terms like Orwellian, memory hole, and newspeak have become part of our vocabulary thanks to this book and those who look at this book as a checklist to subjugation rather than what it really is, a work of fiction. So for this installment of the Irreverent Skeptics, let's take a close look at the book and share our thoughts, along with other wonderful dystopian novels and stories.
Shall we then?
Let's go for it. Come on.
That was a great intro. I thought there was more to it. It's like, wow, this is fantastic.
Yeah,
It's almost like one of us is a professional.
Almost.
almost. I'm a professional unprofessional.
Yeah.
So
I got this really cool comment on iTunes that I sound a lot like Dan Carlin, so I'm like, holy shit! I'm actually making some progress here.
moving right along. No.
You
So, yeah,
said
that's
nothing like Dan Carlin.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but I don't ever listen to you talk and think, Jesus, just shut up already. I like Dan Carlin, but could he pat himself on the back any harder?
Yeah.
Shit, we're recording this.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Dan.
Sorry about that. Love your show.
I'm sure he's watching.
Love your show, Dan. I really do.
Okay, so 1984.
Yes, 1984.
Yeah, I read the book years and years and years ago, and I watched the movie recently, and I re-listened to the book as an audiobook over the past week, and I keep finding new things in it that I just never really noticed before, new themes. But I guess part of that's just because I think I read it when I was like 15, and I've kind of matured in my understanding of this stuff since then. But I think one of the most striking elements of the story to me is the idea that they've created a society that has brought about the death of the fact. Like, facts just aren't even things anymore. Like, one of the things that happens in the story is the main character, Winston, works for, is it for the Ministry of Truth that he works for? Yeah.
The
Minitrue. Which is actually the organization designed to create propaganda and lie and distort the past and things like that.
Censorship.
Yeah, and one of the things he does is he'll get orders to go back and modify old documents to change statistics so that they match what actually happened, to make it look like Big Brother's predictions are always coming true, to make it so certain people never really existed. And the thing is that you start to realize not only is he changing things that he thought were true, he's changing things that he has no way of finding out one way or another what the original truth was. Like, you've got stories about victories over their military enemies in some campaign somewhere. The entire battle may never have happened. I mean, the people that they killed might have never existed, and yet they'll go through and revise the casualty figures, or they'll go through and like change. At one point, he talks about somewhere over here he's correcting the levels of boot production for the country for the year, and I guess he changed the estimate from 150 million pairs of boots down to 62 million pairs, but he actually was told to change it to 57 million, and then he gave himself the little padding so that it would make it look like they went over quota. And then in reality, of course, there may not have even been any boots made at all. The whole idea of factual reporting, factual history is just not even a thing anymore in his society. And that's,
although you assume that somebody somewhere had some access to the actual facts so that they could use it for planning purposes.
Right. Or I mean, maybe not. Maybe they just don't even care. Maybe they just pretend, because he keeps talking about, like, they keep coming out with reports about how the standard of living has gone up and how prosperous everybody is, and every week he has no new razor blades to shave with. So it's like you're thinking maybe nobody's actually producing anything new anymore, and they're just reusing old things over and over again. I mean, the state of the society where they're living. What the hell?
Dog.
Animal attraction.
So, but
Maybe there's not even a war going on at all. They're just
right. I mean, maybe all these people they keep carting in as prisoners are just. Maybe it's just one whole worldwide government. There's no way of really knowing anything in this book other than what's going on in his life.
I always kind of assumed that there wasn't actually a war going on anywhere. That it was just propaganda.
Although, if there wasn't any war going on, why would they keep on changing who they're at war with and expecting people to just for fun, maybe, or just as an exercise in manipulating the public?
Yeah,
I would say to have something to rally behind. All the people are rallying behind the cause of fighting. Insert enemy here.
No, but yeah, remember in the book there are parts where they're thinking they're at war with one place, and then all of a sudden it's switching. Oh, we're at war with this place, and they make it sound, and everybody starts to believe we're at war with that other place all along.
Right. Yeah, I think that another thing that stuck out to me this time through the book was there's a guy he's talking to who's working on the Newspeak dictionary, the latest version of the official dictionary for the English language, and he talks about how the goal of the new revision is to delete any words that are unnecessary. And I mean, they go through and say things like, you no longer even need the whole spectrum of words that mean the opposite of good, because nothing means the opposite of good except for ungood. And so they're talking about cutting the language down to the bone and making it so that you don't even have to think to speak anymore. They're eliminating thought. Like, what does he say? Like, orthodoxy is unconsciousness. So following the rules and doing everything the right way is you don't even have to think anymore. You're basically just an animal acting.
Oh, that particular is kind of, because, language, people just use language. Nobody consults a dictionary in order to use language.
Right. Of course, the plan for the language in 1984 is to get everybody speaking it somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
They seem to be pretty good at that. That seems
like one of the most ridiculous parts of the book to me, because that you could actually control the way people use language if you're such a huge dictatorial state. I don't think that's really possible.
It seems to me, I guess, not to go off too far off the rail on that, but it seems kind of like an antiquated notion that the dictionary does define what languages, and you'll hear people. Less now than in past. I will hear people say that's not even a real word in the dictionary. Yeah, nobody looks at those anymore.
So.
Yeah. Oh, and I love
that's only worth it for.
That's not a real word. Like, is it in common usage? Then it's a real word. That's how language works. But anyway.
I finally need the dictionary for Scrabble.
Mm-hmm. If it's in the dictionary, it's a real word for the purposes of Scrabble.
Did you both just say the same thing?
About, yeah.
That's really weird. Okay.
Now we know who the clones really are.
Yes. I always thought you looked a little bit alike.
So, Mr. Bowler, tell us how 1984 ties into, the every conspiracy theory. Because doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. There's this, and I'm going through the Illuminati conspiracy, and there's so much of this, about police states and, cameras on street corners and RFI chips, it's all part of, they look at, they really look at the book 1984 as a checklist. We lose, where facts are, where the media has taken control, the military-industrial complex, because that's the basic structure of these countries that Orwell created. You have the proles, which were the people who did the work. They worked the mines, the factories, so on. Then you had the middle class, which would be the ones that were working in the ministries, like Winston. He's more he would be like a middle class, bureaucrat, and he would be they would have those fairly decent jobs, and then of course you have the what do they call it? The
the inner party.
Yeah, the inner party, who are the elites, and the inner party is the industrialists, the all the political
charge.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's how a lot of these conspiracy people see the world turning into, that we will, that the proles are the slaves. They work for minimum amount of money. They're force-fed pornography and sports, and of course they're bombarded with this propaganda coming out of the Ministry of Truth. And that's kind of the basis, and they use that when they see, especially like Alex Jones. I mean, alternative media. A lot of these, they look at it as they have the truth. They know it's really happening, and that the mainstream, the big broadcasting companies, ABC, NBC, BBC, all the state-run radio is feeding us propaganda, and it's all, of course, the conspiracy theorists see through it, and a lot of times they literally look at it's almost like a mirror to the book 1984, and I think that's one of their bases, and then they build upon that. It's when a city wants to put cameras on street corners, it's all of a sudden you always get this is invasion of privacy and Big Brother, watching us, everything we do. Credit cards, driver's licenses, passports, it's all part of a control grid, they usually refer to. So every time you cross a border with your passport, there's a RFID chip telling you that you're there. You're crossing the border at this time, this place, and it goes into a database, and they're watching you. And every time you use a credit card.
Why would we need a chip for that? Since we are often carrying a receiver transmitter in our pocket that has a camera and a microphone, and it's completely hackable. So
and it has GPS. Almost all of them have GPS and are constantly pinging something that tells you where you are.
You just reminded me of a podcast I listened to that played a clip from Glenn Beck where he was talking about the video game Watch Dogs, which is kind of a dystopian sort of video game where you're running around in sort of near future Chicago, where this huge computer network is in control of everything in the city, from the police to traffic cameras to bridges, power stations, everything. And you play the role of this vigilante who is a action hero / hacker who goes around hacking things and trying to find. I don't know I haven't gotten very far in the plot yet, but he's trying to avenge his niece at the beginning of the game. But one thing you keep finding out is that this society is kind of being controlled by the people who run the network. Like they're recording everything that's going on in people's homes. They're recording everything from their cell phones, anything that's internet connected. They're taking the data that they collect to craft specific messages to target people with for political campaigns, and then after the fact they're going through and tweaking the voting counts so to guarantee that this guy gets elected and still is popular enough that they don't think it's rigged. And
if you have total control of the media, you don't really need to rig elections.
No, but the thing is that Glenn Beck in his program, in his internet show or whatever, was talking about how this game is teaching our kids how to hack into things. And of course, in the game, you press square button to hack. And
that's always been my experience.
It's teaching people to get used to the surveillance state and teaching the kids to. I don't know. It was just the most bizarre thing in the world, but it is interesting.
I can't find the square button on my keyboard. Is it somewhere here?
As a software developer, really all I do to do programming is just click a mouse a bunch of times and things just start happening.
The progress meter fills up and it says program complete.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of beeping and whirring too.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of sidetracking here, but actually a lot of hacking happens with offline, people stealing documents and such. It's not you're finding a password under the keyboard.
Or
It's
social
not
engineering,
like
yeah.
you're
Social engineering.
always. Yeah.
The weakest link is people. So
Yep.
But yeah, so there's definitely I can definitely see that conspiratorial mindset and how Glenn Beck seems to think that this game is teaching kids that the real world is really like the game.
I couldn't even further. I just like to mention that the actual historical Illuminati, really cool organization.
Yeah.
And definitely not world controlling. Kind of an old boys club, really, like the Elks.
They were originally called the Perfectibilists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to totally derail you there, Mike.
I was going to say, in retrospect, I kind of feel bad for all the Big Brother comments I've made about certain things now, because now when I hear someone say that, I just want to be like, oh, shut up. That's what I say, shut up. And now I feel bad in retrospect for all the times I made comments like that.
I think that people who talk about how the latest technology that seems to be intruding into your life is Big Brother and it's bringing about 1984 really missed the entire point of the book, because it's not about a surveillance state. It's about removing it's about basically deleting human nature. It's making people into animals who don't have to think, who don't have to worry about facts anymore. They just do, and they just live. That's it. It's not about watching out for people watching you. It's about a society where everything is orchestrated to prevent you from any sort of desire or normal human interaction or intellectual pursuit. Where, I mean, even the guy who I talked about earlier, who's writing the new version of the dictionary, Winston figures he's eventually going to be disappeared, vaporized, because he's too smart for his own good. He seems to think too deeply about things. Because it's not really about being watched all the time. It's about being reduced to an animal.
Right.
Here I thought the whole point of the book was about how difficult recipe planning and menu planning was on a tight budget.
What?
Insert crickets here.
Your jokes are so obscure.
I really need to share that clip with the crickets so everyone can insert it in the post-production.
I'm just going to shut up and let Mike go ahead and tell us the rest.
It's called African Savannah at Night.
Chirp, 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 chirp. So one thing I listened to the audiobook of this, and at the introduction of the audiobook, they mentioned that Orwell himself was actually a socialist during the 30s and 40s, and he even fought for Spain during the socialist revolution there, I think. But when he started hearing about all the stuff coming out of Stalinist Russia, like the gulags and the disappearances of people, he really became disillusioned with that kind of socialism. And the 1984 was sort of a broadside against the totalitarian socialist organization, where you have the inner party people, the key members of the party, who live these lavish lifestyles of luxury and with plenty and richness, and all the workers are out there talking about how no one in the party is any better than anyone else, and they're all the same, and it's just all an illusion that there really is the same sort of corruption that the party was blasting capitalism for, with the bourgeoisie being these rich people who were lording life over the poor people. Really, they ended up doing that themselves, and they still tried to convince everybody below them that they were all the same, and it was all a lie. So that's what Orwell's goal was, I think, in 1984, was to kind of expose what that was like and what was really going on.
Yeah, I think most utopians, socialist utopians nowadays refer to something like the Star Trek.
Yeah.
I think old school communism is pretty much dead nowadays.
All right.
But John, 1984 isn't the only dystopian novel out there, is it?
It is not. So I've got a list here.
Worst segue ever.
Best segue ever. Shut up.
It was that or the dead air we had going. So I've got a list here of some other dystopian novels and stories that we'll talk about for a minute or two. So the first one was one I read recently. It's a story called "When Sysadmins Ruled the World" by Cory Doctorow, and this is one of those ones where I have a hard time deciding if I would call it dystopian or post-apocalyptic. I guess they can go hand in hand, but there seems like there should be. So I don't know. I feel like there should be some kind of defining line between the two, although I don't know exactly what it is. So in this book, it's one where there's some kind of chemical attack that happens at least around the country, if not around the world, and people are dying off outside. And so there's a group of people who are sysadmins in different locations, in different businesses. One of them was Google, was mentioned, and a few others. And these people are trying to keep their systems together so they can communicate with one another. And some of them venture out, never to be heard from again, and eventually they start to rebuild. Like I said, it's a short story. It's maybe, I don't know, maybe 40, 60 pages long or something. The next one, pretty popular, I suppose, is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This is one where I would very firmly put it in post-apocalyptic rather than dystopian, where there's some unnamed cataclysmic event that has happened, and the whole world is basically just gone to shit. And it's the story of a father and his son who are working their way across the country, following this road across the country to the beach where they think maybe they have a chance of finding something better there. Has anyone else read that book besides me?
I keep meaning to, but I've never read it.
It's all right. I don't know. I don't find it as great as a number of people I have seen do, but it was okay. It's worth reading. The next one is a fantastic book called The Wind-Up Girl. If you haven't read that, I highly, highly recommend it. There's a couple of scenes in the book that are a little uncomfortable, but other than that, it is just a fantastic story.
Tell me, what makes you uncomfortable?
Well, different things, but specifically in this one, sexual assault and the way it's described in this in one or two parts is kind of made me squirm a bit, but otherwise it was such a fantastic story. And this one I would actually call dystopian because there's no particular apocalyptic event. It's just, as I recall, many years in the future where current calories are currency, as I guess water is more scarce, or not water, but energy, fossil fuels and whatnot are scarce or non-existent. So currency really is calories, and there's these elephant-type creatures they use to power things. Like they'll put them on what the hell is that called? Truss them, or they'll attach them to a wheel and like a mill wheel or something, walk them around in circles to create power. And anyway, that story's fantastic. It's got human clones that have particular, or genetically engineered people who have particular tics about them, if you will, that are really interesting. And again, I just highly recommend this book. It is so freaking good. I've had a few people that I've recommended to read it, and everyone so far has agreed that it was really good. The Postman, anyone read the book or see the movie?
I've seen the movie, I think, but it was a long time ago. I was probably something like 9 or 10.
Yeah, I saw the movie as well, and this has been something that's recommended to me to read numerous times because supposedly the book is so much better than the movie, and it's on my list to read. I had put it off for the longest time because it's written by David Brin, who is a very well-known sci-fi author, and I had read a book of his many, many years ago that I just did not particularly care for, and so that kind of turned me off to reading anything else. And here I am many years later and decided that's not a good reason to put all of them off. Like I only gave him one shot, and he's very well known and well spoken of, so I thought I'd give this one a shot too. And this one's one where I don't know if there's a particular event that was an apocalyptic event, but nonetheless, it's in the future where societies have broken down. It's much more difficult to survive, and I guess the main character of this story is someone who as I recall, he runs across an old Postal Service worker's uniform and puts it on, and I guess he carries himself as if he's a postman, whether he was or not, and chaos ensues, and so on and so forth. Then there's Ready Player One. That's pretty popular these days, by Ernest Cline. Anybody here? This is like the obscure list of books for you guys. This one's another dystopian novel where I don't remember if it was ever explained in how much of it I read why society was the way it was, but basically, I guess the best way to put it is just like your classic sort of like your classic dystopian setting. Life's rough. Most people don't live well, or something that effect. I don't know. I don't think I'm describing that well. But anyway, this book has a lot of references to 80s and 90s culture, specifically video gaming culture, and it's supposed to be fantastic. I think I got about a third of the way through it and just wasn't doing it for me, so I put that one down. As many people as I've known who've said they loved it, I guess I would recommend it. It didn't happen to be for me, but it comes highly recommended. The next one, The Children of Men. Anybody see the movie or read the book?
I seem to remember this is the one where everybody's become infertile. Is that right?
Yeah, right.
And there's only the one woman who somehow has a baby, and they're trying to save her and protect her.
Right. The character, the main character in the story comes across this girl who happens to be pregnant, which is a big deal, and he's trying to escort her to safety. And so it's like you said, it's a society where everyone's gone infertile, and because of that, it's kind of you see society breaking down in a lot of ways, and that's pretty classic dystopia, I guess. That's a good one. I recommend this story to people highly. The next, Children of Men is by P.D. James, by the way. And I don't think I said The Wind-Up Girl is by Paolo Bacigalupi.
Sure, we'll go for that.
I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. Anyway, I'm not sure. Anywho, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Have neither read the books nor seen the movies. Either of you guys.
I have read the books. I've seen the first movie. I haven't seen the other one yet, though. There is a trilogy of books about a not really post-apocalyptic society, but it's like in America after there was some huge civil war that totally upset society, and the government cracked down and became totalitarian and reconsolidated all of its power. And as a result of, I guess, like punishment for the uprising against the government, they split the country up into all these different districts, and every year they force these districts to select 2 children to come and fight in battles to the death.
I think you kind of got that a little bit wrong. They were already separated into districts by the time the uprising happened.
Okay.
Yeah, and
there was an extra
central
that was destroyed in the uprising.
Right. There was one district that was destroyed in the uprising, and all the others, as a result, as punishment for it, they had to send 2 of their kids off to the capital, to this battle arena, where they have to try to fight and survive, fight each other to the death until there's only one of them remaining. And the main character of the book is this girl named Katniss Everdeen, who just, I guess she volunteers to go because her sister was picked randomly, and the whole plot is that she kind of at first pretends to she doesn't want to kill people, but she ends up finding that she has to do it anyways, and she's running up against all these genetically engineered monstrosities that the government's conducted. They somehow have this massive technological capability to alter the terrain and to cause natural disasters and things like that in the arena. And at the end of the first book, she survives the arena with the boy that went there with her from her district, and I guess the reason the 2 of them decide to pretend that they're in love as a way to explain why she wanted to save him, and like they have to put on this show of being in love, and he gets kidnapped by the I guess I think it was the end of the second book. Like they bring her back into the arena again, and basically they have it's this special year where they have all the previous champions of the arena come back and they have to fight each other, and so they bring her and the boy Peta back again, and at the end of that. These rebels who have been hiding in the destroyed district come in and save her, and he gets kidnapped by the government. And then the third book is all about how she becomes this huge symbol for the rebellion and goes around to all the different battlefronts in the rebellion and just makes an appearance. It kind of becomes the poster child for the rebellion, and they take the fight to the capital and fight off the government's army and overthrow the government, and it's really I don't really remember how the third book ends now that I talk about it, but it's very I don't really understand why it was so appealing to young adults, but apparently it was. It's a very violent series and kind of gruesome, but I don't know. I enjoyed it. I read through it pretty quickly.
Yeah,
I
it's
think that's violent and gruesome. Read Altered Carbon. I'm just saying.
it's kind of important to note that the central government uses the districts kind of as colonies, as
Right.
like 18th century.
By the way, everyone, spoiler alert.
Oh yeah, now that I've told the whole plot of all three books. Sorry.
Yeah.
I've only read the first book, but I'm amazed to hear that. Oh, next book they're just going to do the arena again.
Yeah.
And I think that the point of the arena is to keep the districts from collaborating, basically by everyone having an enemy in another district who has killed someone from your district. So that.
But yeah,
never
that's a good point. One thing that happens is that this little girl makes friends with Katniss, and she's a little girl from one of the other districts, and she ends up getting killed, and Katniss shows her a whole lot of kindness after she's died. Like she puts flowers on her body and sings a song or something, and ends up giving a salute to one of the cameras that's showing this thing to the whole country. And that salute and the song that she sings kind of becomes one of the symbols of the rebellion. And she goes and visits the district the girl was from at some point, and I think somebody ends up giving the salute and then gets shot or something. But
yeah, they pretty much have a scene where an old guy or something gives the salute.
yeah, but then that kind of helps to fire up the rebellion, because that whole district gets behind her at that point, because they're tired of seeing their children and their old people getting murdered. And of course, most of the districts are living in abject poverty, and the capital is full of people who, for no reason other than having been born there, are just ridiculously wealthy, and they're constantly throwing balls and dances and huge feasts and just lavish, wealthy parties, and totally ignorant of what the real world is like out there in the districts.
So kind of like colonialism, how colonialism colonies work. Yeah.
English is hard, I know.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like 1984, where the inner party is really like, what was it, O'Brien, the guy from the inner party, if you watch the movie, they're pretty clear about the fact that the people who are living in the inner party are living in wealth, because like everybody else lives in squalor, everything is falling apart and in disrepair. And then they go to the house of the inner party guy, and it's this huge open space with everything's brightly lit and colorful and clean, and he's got food and the razor blades that Winston hasn't had new ones of in 6 weeks and things like that. So that's a common theme I see a lot in dystopian novels, is the people who are in control are just making out like bandits with all the wealth they have when everybody else is suffering.
So another dystopian novel that I just realized a moment ago I hadn't put in here, that it has some similarities, I guess, to the Hunger Games. Very vague similarities, is Battle Royale.
I saw a lot of people trying to say that. I saw a lot of people trying to say that they ripped off Battle Royale, but they're significantly different stories.
That's a tough claim to make, that they ripped off that book, because the whole idea of how you want to describe it, like that kind of fighting, or that kind of a tournament of sorts or something like that. Like that is not a new idea. That idea is not brand new.
The Romans kind of
Battle Royale was not. Yeah, I was gonna say Battle Royale did not pioneer that idea.
No, I think the only real similarity between the two of them is that you have the government instituting a program where kids fight each other to the death, and
right,
the rest, everything else, all the other details are totally different.
So in Battle Royale, as I recall, it's been a long time, but as I recall, the government does, just like Mike said just now, they institute a policy where these kids will fight to the death, and what it is I think there's a lottery system where classrooms or entire classes of schools are selected, and they're taken from their class to, I don't remember if it's an island or just some particular location, and they're told to fight to the death. The last man standing wins, and
I think they win some huge cash prize or something.
And they get to stay alive.
Yeah. I think the book is much better than the movie. I read the book and watched the movie.
And the movie's awesome, though, too.
Yes, but the book is almost like a mix between 1984 and The Hunger Games, because what you have is a Japan that after World War II has become this huge totalitarian dictatorship. Mm-hmm. And it's the way that they keep people from willing to rebel is by reminding them of the power they have by forcing random kids to go fight each other.
And I've read that the reason the author wrote that book was, I guess, to make a statement about the violent culture of teenagers in Japan at the time. I don't know if that's the case. I read that somewhere, so take that for what it's worth. I don't know if that's I
think it's just a critique of the Japanese game shows that are horrible.
They are kind of crazy, yeah.
The next book, 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. I think Brandy was going to talk about this, but she's not with us in voice today. So I don't know. Has anyone else read this?
She's with us in spirit.
Well, she's at the Joy Camp. She can't speak right now.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know anything else about that, but that is on the list. I've read a synopsis, a small summary of it, not the synopsis, and it looks interesting, and it's on my to-read list, which is fucking enormous. So I'll get to it when I can. Next, Ray Bradbury classic, Fahrenheit 451. I have actually never read that.
I read it years and years ago.
I don't know a lot about it. So
I read it. I read it years ago too. So it's. I mean, I've seen the movie too. It's about a society that basically has eliminated language.
Needs more air conditioning, apparently.
Yeah. And the firemen are actually guys that when they find caches of books, they burn them.
And the people who had them.
And he almost kind of like just he what's the guy's name? Montag, I think was his.
Yeah.
Yeah. Started kind of questioning what he was doing, burning books, killing people, burning houses. When they find a house just packed full of books, they set the whole house on fire, and it kind of comes to the realization that there's a lot of this literature is being destroyed, and kind of realizes kind of the folly of this lost knowledge, and takes up with the rebellion, I guess, which were people who literally by memory memorizing whole books to try to save them.
What gets me about this book is, from what I've read about it, Bradbury wrote it kind of in a rush. Like he wrote through it all at once, just in a frenzy, and then didn't go back and do a whole lot of editing.
Yeah.
And yet it's still memorialized as this award-winning book, and it's a favorite of so many people. And I don't know, I only read it once, and I didn't really find it all that impressive, honestly.
Yeah, actually, that's the thing. It's not well fleshed out. I mean, 1984. I mean, when you go through the book, Winston explains who these people are, what they do, or at least in his perception of the world he lives in. You get a really rich explanation of who these people are and what they do and why they're there. And Fahrenheit 451, it's not as clear. I mean, what world are they living in? Is it is it totalitarian? Or is it just trying to it's whatever that it was decided knowledge wasn't good anymore. So or whatever. I don't know. Like I said, it was not as rich as 1984.
I'm trying to remember the name of a movie. There was a movie. It was like an action kung fu movie that was sort of a takeoff of Fahrenheit 451. Equilibrium. That's what it was called. Equilibrium was a movie where basically, because of all the problems that human emotion caused, all the violence and the war and everything, they basically blamed crime on human emotion. The government came up with a pill that people could take that would suppress their emotions, and it was very much like a mix of Fahrenheit 451 and 1984, where you have every day everybody meets in the public square and has a demonstration of like a speech from their leader. I don't remember. They gave him some name, kind of like Big Brother or something like that.
I missed this movie.
And the main character is one of these guys who goes out and hunts down people who are hiding sentimental materials, like think music or literature or anything that's supposed to inspire emotions in people. And he ends up, I guess his wife dies, and he has 2 kids, and he's afraid that they're going to be reporting on him because he stops taking his pills to suppress his emotions, because he wants to feel that his wife died. He wants to actually have some sort of feeling from that. And he ends up... The movie basically ends up with him overthrowing the government by himself, like single-handedly, because it's a kung fu shooting movie. Like they train people to do gun kata, which are like the kung fu hand position things, except with guns, and he just shoots.
Oh, now I know why I haven't seen this movie.
It's actually not a bad movie if you don't ignore the ridiculous action scenes, which are basically him shooting people, dozens of people in a room at once in the dark without knowing where they are. Apparently just using the positions right means that you're going to hit people. I don't know. But
I think they are called priests or something, the guys who wield the guns and do that.
Something like that, yeah. But it's worth watching. It's not... I mean, it's clearly like a takeoff, or maybe an homage even, to books like 1984 and Fahrenheit 451, but it's got some interesting concepts of its own behind it. Of course, it turns out that the guy's kids have also stopped taking their medicine after their mother died, so they've been just hiding the fact that they're feeling emotions from him. But like he hears a piece of music playing on a record and just gets totally overcome with emotion, and
sees puppies.
Yeah. And his fellow priests, or whatever they're called, they notice that he's clearly showing some sort of emotion, and he has to like fight them off, and it's an interesting movie.
I think the puppy scene is really powerful, as a dog person anyway.
Speaking of dystopian movies, I'm sorry.
And also it's called cubic in some countries for some reason. Equilibrium. Yeah. It has 2 names for some reason, I don't know why.
Speaking of dystopian movies, The Matrix, that was a good dystopian movie. If only they would have made sequels to it, it would have been nice.
Yeah, it would be good if it wasn't just the one.
Yeah, it would be great. So moving on, dystopian movies, Starship Troopers, also a book. Haven't read the book. I love the movie in the hey, this is dumb fun action. Like, didn't expect anything out of it, didn't get anything out of it. I liked it for that. So.
But it has a kind of tint of propaganda in it.
Oh yeah,
they make the aliens look like invaders. Yeah. They make the aliens look like the invaders, even though they are basically the ones doing genocide.
Right.
That doesn't seem relevant at all. So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I like the book better because, again, it's to relate it to the only thing that's related between the book and the movie is you got Rico, the main character, and instead of him being kind of and in the movie he's among, he's again put up or he's matched up with what's Denise Richard character in the Ibanez, but really the book is really about it's almost like a 1984 book or about with Winston, where Rico is living in this society where the military. It kind of sounds an awful lot like what we're doing here in the States. This honoring the military, and the military gets by serving in the military or serving the state that you gain extra privileges. If you're just a citizen, you can vote and stuff like that, but you have to get permits to have children. You gotta
Kind of the opposite of what's going on in
yeah.
reality these days, huh?
Yeah. But of course, anyone in the military then gets all the they can have children, they can vote, they can do all sorts of they have all these extra privileges, and but the mobile infantry, which is where Rico's assigned to, is one of those where you don't survive too long.
They're cannon fodder,
pretty much, and so you kind of get this. You kind of there's kind of this. I don't know what to best describe it, but it's his frustration with his life and the world he lives in, and because he's sent into these planets, and he has to basically fend for himself until the fleet shows up to pull him out, and it's kind of neat. But what was interesting when I started looking into the book more, that there's this again. I mean, I would rank it with 1984 as an examination on politics or political ideas, because Heinlein took a lot of heat for the book, because he was accused of glorifying war and military, anything, not necessarily military dictatorship, but along that lines. But it was really, the book is almost like an attack against war. Was like, to me it sounded awful like an anti-war story.
That's something I actually got from the movie of Starship Troopers, though, is that it's depicting war as this. I mean, you see the kind of gung-ho, ridiculous, over-the-top attitude of all the soldiers. It's kind of parodying the oorah, the sort of. I already said gung-ho, didn't I? It's the huge exuberance towards battle and towards defeating the enemy. And then you clash against that by showing scenes of people having their limbs torn off, people with their faces melting. It's parodying the glorification of war and showing in stark contrast the nasty reality, brutal reality of war.
I have an important question about that book. Is Denise Richards actually in the book?
It would have been nice.
Yeah. If not, then I don't see any reason to read it. So.
Yeah.
But ching.
So I've just, as we've been talking here, I went back and looked at some of the more details about the film Equilibrium. Apparently the characters were called clerics, and they worked for an organization called the Tetragrammaton, which is, I guess, led by somebody named Father. So there's the Big Brother similarity there. But in the movie, it turns out that Father is actually just this random dude pretending to be Father. It's just the leader of the council pretending to be this non-existent person. And in 1984, we also kind of get the idea that Big Brother isn't and never was a real person, because you see Winston, for example, is writing a speech that Big Brother supposedly gave, which kind of gives you the impression that Big Brother has always just been this idea, this figurehead that's been used to promote the message of the party, or the current message of the party, and not an actual person who's ever existed.
Also, I looked, and on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 37% rating. So yeah, there's that.
IMDb gives it a 7.6 out of 10. So
that's interesting.
I enjoyed it very much. So.
All right, moving on then. Our next book. Here's a pretty popular one by Anthony Burgess, Clockwork Orange.
Time for a little of the ultraviolence.
So here's the
Most
idea. So
likely
this is a set. It's a dystopian novel. It's set in the not so distant future, whatever that is. And basically, I guess it's set in England, and part of the theme is that the youth in England in the not too distant future is super violent, and the main character Alex, it follows along some of his exploits and then his rehabilitation, if you will, and the fallout from that. And I guess I read it a long time ago and didn't enjoy it, and I saw the movie and enjoyed that even less. And I just always had a sour taste in my mouth about this.
I've never read the book, but I've seen the movie. And I gotta say, I don't even know if it's dystopian so much as that we're supposed to see it from the perspective of this asshole.
Yeah,
Like, the society seems pretty much normal, except for the techniques that they use to get this guy back in line. It's just him and his friends that are huge assholes.
yeah. I guess that was one of the things when I read the book. I felt like, I could be wrong, but I felt like the idea was that he was supposed to, at some point, you were supposed to sympathize with his character, and I just thought, this guy's kind of a cock. Like, they should have just drowned him in a river and threw him in a hole or something. Like, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it seems. I had just kind of, it missed me. So I don't know. Anyway.
Well, there's that aspect, but there's this that part about. I mean, I'm going by the movie, not by the book, but that society wants us to be these neat little cookie cutter, perfect people, and when he goes to prison, he gets into the program. It was like it didn't really matter as long as the results was you had this, they created this person who couldn't defend himself, and then next thing you know, he gets mixed up with this underground movement trying to overthrow the government or do whatever with the government. And they were going to, make him commit suicide and then blame the government. Then he ends up in the hospital, and then the government fixes him, quote unquote, and turns him into kind of turns him back. And it's like, it's like this, it's not so much, I mean, yeah, this guy was a total asshole. Alex was a total asshole and probably a criminal, and he probably should have stayed in prison. But the way people were treating him throughout this, they were trying to mold him into something that he wasn't. The guy was an asshole, or he was a criminal. But everyone's trying to turn him into what he wasn't, and kept, playing with his head, experiments, all that kind of stuff. So there's kind of like this kind of a mix of this the government interference, the science, it is a jab at science where they're trying, that somebody, or the scientist has figured out, he had a drug and all that kind of stuff to make him compliant. And it's all about conformity, trying to force people to conform to a certain societal standard. But there's so many these different approaches to it that I mean, I felt more sorry for him after the treatment. Before that, I had no, I could care less what would happen to Alex. It was afterwards and how he was treated is where I started getting sympathy for the guy, because the way he was manipulated and exploited. I mean, that's my take.
I feel you. All right, next, The Watchmen. I guess this was a graphic novel as well as a movie more recently. I saw the movie, never read the graphic novel. Somebody else take it away.
Yeah, the story goes like this. A group of B-list superheroes, they used to run around in costumes. They are kind of middle-aged now, but in their youth, they used to run around in costumes, and fight crime. They are just regular people. They go against this super intelligent guy, Andreas White, who used to be their comrade, who now is an idealist who wants to end the Cold War, basically. It's not that much of a dystopian future, more like a superhero thing set in the 80s during the Cold War.
I don't remember how the movie ends, but I know that the way he tries to unite people, unite the world in the book, in the graphic novel, is by he created some sort of genetic monstrosity and tried to paint it as an alien invader and had it attack. I think he had attacked New York City or something. And so the idea was that he was trying to unite humanity behind getting rid of this thing and fighting this thing off.
Yes, and what he does in the movie is he tries to prevent the nuclear war by making Dr. Manhattan, who is the only real superhero of the group. He actually has powers.
Basically, he's a god.
Yeah, he sees outside of time and space and everything. He just isn't human anymore. He has this incredible Hulk-like accident with some kind of a machine, and
it disintegrates him by molecule, and then he rebuilds himself and can manipulate matter and energy. And
he's in some
somehow
kind of
nobody thought to put a latch
state.
on the inside of that door in that big machine.
He just takes the lock off.
Yeah, but as far as Alan Moore goes, he did do an actual dystopian future in V for Vendetta. That's how you make a segue, by the way. And
I make a segue with a couple of wheels, a little upright thing, a balancing system, and
Erno, you're hired.
So that story is about basically it's a commentary on Margaret Thatcher's England transforming into a dystopian Nazi nightmare where you have one religion, unity through strength through religion, and so on. And there's this guy who's pretty much supposedly like the big brother, and he has all these henchmen, and it's basically anarchy, like a real anarchist going against a very powerful government. And because the government is it does everything as expected, because it's just a bunch of bureaucrats doing things. He can anticipate every move, and they are completely unable to think how we, who is a monstrosity created by an experience in a death camp or whatever, where I think he might be a homosexual or something like that. It's never made clear, but they carried people who were foreign and homosexuals and such, much like the Nazis. They carried them over to these death camps where they did studies, and then they tried to hide the fact that they had done these things. Oh yeah, and also they persecuted communists, much like the Nazis. So, yeah.
And thanks to the movie version, a ton of jackasses on the internet thought that wearing a Guy Fawkes mask would stick it to the man. Royalties.
So, speaking of which, dumbass, that was a lovely Guy Fawkes mask you had on from the Scientology episode.
It wasn't intended as a Guy Fawkes mask, actually, but I guess it looked kind of like that, didn't it?
Yeah. But V is pretty much depicted as a person who protects art and ideas that come from a person, an individual, instead of the collective Nazi-like culture. So he has all these contraband things, much like you would have books in Fahrenheit, I suppose. They would be contraband. So he protects culture by being an anarchist. And I suppose that's why the people who support basically reform in the government wear those Guy Fawkes masks that V wears.
All right. Next is by Margaret. Next by Margaret Atwood, Oryx and Crake. I have not read this. If you read it and you're going to tell us about it, do not ruin it for me.
Yeah,
It's on my list.
I've read this. It's pretty decent. The story is basically set. I guess really the present is supposed to be this sort of post-apocalyptic world where there's this guy hiding out on the edge of society, at the edge of some ruined city where a bunch of genetically engineered human beings are running around and like trying to repopulate or something. But the story takes place mostly in his memories, and it's a sort of dystopian world that he's living in where these powerful corporations have just started doing genetic engineering and running wild with it, and people end up living in these sort of cloistered cities where outside of the cities you can't be guaranteed that you're safe because there's diseases and genetically engineered animals all running all over the place, and it's kind of a love story. It's him finding this like a prostitute or something that he falls in love with, or it's hard to describe. It's been a while since I've read it, but it's sort of like an online prostitute or she's a pornography girl who also does prostitution, and he falls in love with her and tries to save her from this world, and it's all told through his memories of what this was like before some disease ended up wiping out a whole bunch of people, most of humanity. And it's him reminiscing of how he fell in love with this girl and saved her from the people who owned her, and it's really interesting. Margaret Atwood does a lot of books like this, actually. There's another one she wrote called The Handmaid's Tale, which is much clearly a dystopian future thing. And there's a movie version of it and the book version. The movie version diverges quite a lot from the book, but the basic plot of The Handmaid's Tale is that as a result of diseases and wars and things like that, somehow people have become mostly sterile. At least women have become mostly sterile, infertile, and a Christian theocracy takes over the U.S. government, and it's all about how there is basically they take away all of the rights of women. They make them subjugated to their husbands. They literally take away their names and name them after their husband, like I guess or the person who they're a concubine to, either their husband or the person they're a concubine to. The woman in the story who tells the story is this woman named Of Fred, who is the concubine of Fred. That's her only name, is Of Fred. But she's fertile, and so she's taken to this place where they teach women to be handmaids, which are fertile women who are kind of hired out to various important people so that they can propagate their gene line. And she ends up being the concubine of this powerful member of the ruling party of the United States government, and it's very strange. It's told through first person about her experience in the society where she has no power, no rights, no anything, and she still sees like the commander, I guess is the guy she's with. She still sees he's married. His wife is infertile. His wife is this free woman who doesn't have to deal with all the shit that she's going through, and she sees this and still has no ability to escape from her situation. It's really kind of an interesting story.
I've heard good things about it. Another one I have not read that's on my potential to read list. And then lastly, we have When She Woke by Hillary Jordan. I have never heard of this.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it until just recently. My girlfriend told me about this one. It's a woman, I guess it's kind of similarly, it's a near future America that's been taken over by a fundamentalist Christian far right extremist group that I guess women are reduced in their rights and responsibilities and things, and people are mostly infertile again, and I guess they've totally illegalized abortion, and she has like an affair with somebody and ends up getting pregnant, which is rare, and because she has an abortion, they end up calling her a murderer, and they give her some genetic alteration to mark her skin red, so it's kind of like a little Scarlet Letter thing going on there. And someone is typing. Anyway, so she's marked with her skin color that marks her as a murderer, and then sent back out into the population. And it's the story, I guess, about how she tries to find a way to Canada where they take these people who've been marked and get rid of the coloration, and it's kind of a broadside against the right-wing religious politics of America, and I don't know, I haven't read it myself, so I don't know much more about it, but I just know what she told me.
I kind of wonder now, would you call Atlas Shrugged a dystopian story?
Dictopian.
I mean, it
right.
has the feature of a socialist
I would call it poorly written
government.
fantasy.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a good book. I haven't read it, but yeah, I'm not. But I mean, it has a main character who struggles against the overwhelming majority of the people.
It's a hyper-capitalist wet dream, I would call it.
That's one way to put it.
So there's one actually on our list that's not on our list that I just thought of that I read a little while ago called Christian Nation by Frederick Rich or something like that, I think is his name. It's about an alternate history of the United States where instead of Obama winning in 2008, McCain wins and then dies and Palin becomes president and is manipulated by religious right organizations to sort of inch America toward a Christian theocracy. And eventually it actually does become one. And it's all about this lawyer who worked for an organization that was constantly trying to sound the alarm against the encroaching theocracy to people, and ends up becoming part of a little rebellion, doomed rebellion against the encroaching theocracy. And I really don't remember how the book ends now that I think about it, but it's all about how there are things that are actually going on now in America, like the Generation Joshua, I think is what it's called. It's a movement within right-wing circles to train children as extremist Christian, almost militants, who I guess they're trying to bring up a generation of people who are willing to lay their lives down for Christianity. And it's really not something a whole lot of people heard about, and it's a real thing that's going on, but they're kind of just floating in the background of society right now. It's an interesting story, and he takes a few logical jumps in what might actually happen, but I don't know, it's a not too far from reality.
All right. So should we do our what's now then?
So let's see.
You're gonna read that?
John tells me I should read this. There are two novels that can change a bookish 14-year-old's life: The Lord of the Rings and Atlas Shrugged. One is a childish fantasy that often engenders a lifelong obsession with its unbelievable heroes, leading to an emotionally stunted, socially crippled adulthood unable to deal with the real world. The other, of course, involves orcs.
That was by John Rogers.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
Insane millionaire John Rogers? No, that's not John Rogers. Who is that guy? The guy from the Daily Show, the Mac PC from the Mac commercials. John Hodgman. Okay.
And now we will lost our libertarian listeners. Bye bye. See you.
That one guy.
Well, maybe that one guy will send us our hate mail finally. Waiting forever for some hate mail. I mean, come on, really? What do I gotta do?
Brand was a stupid bitch. There you go. Send us some hate mail. And if you're a Republican Christian politician who supports Ayn Rand, you're fucking ignorant of what her beliefs were. She thought Jesus was a sap, and anybody who has compassion for the weak needs to be just disregarded. So fuck you.
Also, if you're a Republican Christian, listening to this show,
what are you doing?
First of all, welcome, and second, why the hell are you listening to this show? Like, not that I don't want you to, just like, really, why? Like, I'm curious.
Let us know why.
What do you just listen to this for something to laugh at? Like, I'm not sure.
Do you masturbate to this during your guilt fantasies? What?
Maybe he's just really into books. Like,
tell me more, you heathen bastard.
All right.
Right.
Let's do
Whoa.
some what's.
There's
Let's
your
do some
irreverence
what's.
An hour
today,
to get to
motherfuckers.
dick jokes.
That is your irreverence right there, and dick jokes. Yes, we haven't done dick jokes in a couple of episodes, I don't think.
Smear myself with butter and listen to atheists.
Oh my god, now I hear that in Pat Roberts' voice.
I'm gonna smear myself in butter and listen to some atheists.
Jesus.
Okay, so for our
Oh,
first
Jesus
what,
fucking Pat.
from Pathos.com, Kentucky State Senator, Mars has the same temperature as Earth, so climate change is a hoax. Love
Take that, science. Pack up your shit and leave. You're fired.
Get the fuck out. This is about State Senator Brandon Smith, again from Kentucky. Apparently, there was this is during a meeting of the Interim Joint Committee on Natural Resources and Environment. They were discussing new regulations for the Environmental Protection Agency that would limit dioxide emissions from coal plants. So this is a quote of something he said. All this, I wish I could do a good accent. I should have practiced beforehand. But the quote is, all this carbon capture, all this other stuff, it stems back to a scare generated years ago about global warming. Finally, it turned out there hasn't been global warming for 15 or 20 years. Then they changed the name to climate change. So that's the first quote. Anyhow, there's a video attached to
I
this.
just want to note that there is a reason why they use the 15-year period. They started from 1998, which was the hottest year in record, so it shows a decline in temperature.
But if you go longer, then you're just cherry picking a different set of data, Erno.
Here's the next quote. So it's a little longer. It says, I don't see you as being one of the enemies. I know you've got a very tough job to do. As you sit there in your chair with your data, we sit up here in ours with our data and the constituents and stuff behind us. I don't want to get into the debate about climate change, but I will simply point out that I think in academia, we all agree that the temperature on Mars is exactly as it is here. Nobody will dispute that.
I'm pretty sure that's not true.
Yeah. Yet there are no coal mines on Mars. There's no factories on Mars that I'm aware of. So I think what we're looking at is something much greater than what we're going to do. What? What the fuck? What?
Huh?
Fuck. Read a book, asshole. Like, how did
Read a motherfucking book.
read a book? Well, apparently he doesn't need to. I mean, he's a fucking state senator, for fuck's sake.
Well, he can't. He can't read. Come on.
Reading is against Jesus.
Yeah.
Somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's absolutely not true, that Mars is the same temperature as Earth.
I'm pretty sure you are absolutely correct.
The temperature of Mars like negative 80 Celsius or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Well, if I recall correctly, it
Just
has
like
very
Earth.
its daily temperature varies greatly because
Yeah, it has a very thin atmosphere.
yeah. So there's that. So way to go there, Senator Smith, State Senator Smith. All right, McElroy, you got a what or two? You've posted a ton of crazy shit this week, so tell us
I
about
do.
one or two of them.
I have one that I just put in the notes here, and I got another one that I haven't. Georgia Public High School caught teaching students that homosexuality and Satan go hand in hand.
Because why not?
Yes. Well, they don't go hand in hand so much as Dick and... Never mind. An Atlanta high school is in hot water, and after a teacher was caught showing students an illustration suggesting that evolution is a work of Satan and that creation is a work of Christ. The illustrated cartoon was shown during a freshman biology class at Henry W. Grady High School in May. The image also associates humanism, homosexuality, pornography, and abortion with evolution and Satan, because that makes a lot of fucking sense. The high school student newspaper, The Southerner, was first to report about the controversial cartoon shown below, and it's one you may have seen before. I think it's actually made by Ken Ham, of all people. It shows a couple of castles there's like an ocean and two islands, and there's castles on the island. One of them has a bunch of priests shooting cannonballs at a bunch of balloons over the other one, and it has a flag that says Christianity. The other one has a flag that says humanism, and the balloons say things like euthanasia, homosexuality, divorce, pornography, abortion, racism. And I guess the idea is Christianity is spending all of its time shooting at all the issues rather than shooting at the castle, and meanwhile the humanism castle is shooting at the island that the Christianity castle is on. Yeah. So the student newspaper said that the cartoon was part of a 50-page PowerPoint presentation that was uploaded to a file-sharing database used by Atlanta public school teachers. The Atlanta Public School spokeswoman Jill Strickland Luce told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution the cartoon has since been removed from the database. Quote, it appears that this science lesson plan was not properly vetted, you don't fucking say, prior to being uploaded to the district's SharePoint website last summer. When the district learned of the PowerPoint presentation and the worksheet that is in question, the lesson and supporting documents were reviewed, and they were immediately removed. Of course, obviously, this had already gone out to students, or this wouldn't even be a fucking issue at this point.
I guess the upside of that is that at least after it was reviewed, they said, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Linking evolution and Satanism doesn't make any sense. I mean, when you think about Satan's a humanoid with hooves and horns, it makes no sense in evolutionary terms.
Don't forget the little evil mustache to twirl. So, according to a 2009 blog post from Ken Ham, founder and president of Answers in Genesis, the organization that operates the Creation Museum, in case you didn't know that, Ham first created similar cartoons 30 years ago to, quote, illustrate in diagram form the concept of the foundational nature of the battle between Christianity and secular humanism. Which is funny, because if it was actually a battle between Christianity and secular humanism, he wouldn't say it was a battle between creation and evolution. Oh well.
Or would he?
See, because Ken Ham equates evolution with Satanism and humanism, and he doesn't believe that any Christian can accept evolution. But I love how he ties evolution
Take that, Pope.
to homosexuality, and also says that homosexuality can't be natural, even though if that was true, and if we were saying that evolution was all about nature, then we would be saying that homosexuality is natural, and that evolution would lead to homosexuality naturally. I don't know. The guy doesn't make any fucking sense. So the other what I have is from the Progressive Secular Humanist blog on Pathos. You might recognize this name from if you're a listener to the Cognitive Dissonance podcast. Gordon, Dr. Chaps Klingenschmidt, the official Republican nominee for House District 15 in the Colorado House of Representatives. Yes, that's right.
Klingenschmidt sounds dirty.
He's actually a fucking nominee. He won his primary. Said that wanting everyone to be, quote, free to enjoy the worship of Jesus Christ, he's advocating that atheists face exorcism in order to feel more comfortable in church. Quoting Klingenschmidt, if the atheist complainer is so uncomfortable when they walk into a church that there's something inside of them squirming and making them feel these feelings of hatred toward the cross of Jesus Christ, don't you think it's something inside the atheist complainer that's wrong? I have a solution. Let's do an exorcism and cast the devil out of them, and then they'll feel comfortable when they walk into church. Right, because you see a lot of atheists walking into church in the first fucking place, and then squirming in their seats visibly, rather than just not being there at all.
Okay, to think of the same discussion that you and I had online, sort of via comments, like I'm gonna ask here, like, do you not think that maybe he's just being hyperbolic on purpose? Like, he doesn't actually necessarily believe this bullshit. He just says that to pander to his audience.
I think he believes it absolutely. I think he absolutely believes this is true, because this is the same guy who Cognitive Dissonance pointed out a few weeks ago, or maybe last week or a couple weeks ago, pointed out he thinks that spiritual forces like angels and demons are involved with what's going on in American politics. And he even wrote a book about how you can get spiritual discernment to literally see angels, demons, and the Holy Spirit.
Now, as an atheist who's been in church as an atheist, I can tell you I wasn't really uncomfortable, just bored.
That's what I was thinking. Like,
and the pews are really uncomfortable.
When I was a Christian in church, I was bored in church, so maybe that had something to say about where I was headed. So.
But yeah, I love the idea.
I haven't been listening to Cognitive Dissonance. I highly recommend it. Fantastic podcast.
It's a great show. They are even more irreverent than we are.
Is that a challenge?
Is that a challenge? Yes, it is.
I think we can meet that challenge. I'm willing to bet.
So, Gordon Klingenschmidt, wasn't he like a disgraced Navy chaplain or something?
He was busted for wearing his uniform at a political rally. Then he eventually got kicked out. Apparently, he was doing exorcisms on lesbians to get the demons, because homosexuality and lesbianism is caused by demons.
No, wait. A strap-on is not a demon. You can't exercise a strap-on either.
True.
Although you can get some exercise with the strap-on. Never mind.
Exercise. Yeah.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a fucking mess.
Yeah. And he only won by like 100 votes in his primary in a district that is, I'm trying to remember, like maybe 15,000 in the district. He got like 5,000 so many votes. I did it on BitSpot. And,
I really have to stress, this guy won an election. This fucking nutball who's talking about how spiritual forces are involved in our politics, who says that there's invisible ghosts and spirits talking to people and making them make decisions, who says that there are beings inhabiting your body that make you squirm when you go to church. This guy is a fucking serious candidate who can get thousands of votes. What the fuck?
Yeah. Well, on top of it, the guy who's running against was a bigger nutcase than he was.
Why did they
I mean, he was the lesser of two evils.
The thing is that when you have two people like this who are your candidates, just don't vote for either of them. Don't vote for the lesser of them. Just don't vote for either of them.
I wonder if there was just a guy who didn't say anything, who was just as a candidate, as an independent candidate. Would he just get all the votes? Because
unfortunately not, because you have to be outspoken. You have to outspeak the next person, or your opponent, and you have to make them look bad. Unfortunately, that seems to be politics in the U.S. Is
I hear stuff like this.
I got to make this other guy look like a horse's ass even more than I am.
I hear stuff like this story, and I'm reminded of Sam Harris's quote where he says something like, George Bush said that he talked to God daily. Now, if he had said that he talked to God through his toaster, he would be considered insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like the things that these people say that they are engaged in, they're talking to spirits. They're saying that there are things taking over people's bodies and making them do things, that something other than human and natural influences are going on that are changing our politics. It's like these guys are not living in the realm of sanity. They are engaged in a serious delusion, and yet we are still somehow, some thousands of people are willing to say, yeah, I want this guy to control my fate, my political fate, the fate of the country. Sure, why not? Yeah, go for it. Fucking really.
That's de facto two-party
That was your
system
diatribe
for
by
you.
Mephistopheles McElroy. So, Mr. Bowler, I see you have an announcement for us. Do
Yeah,
tell.
I wanted to help out a friend of mine. It's actually political.
Whoa! We're atheists here. We don't help people out.
Okay.
Whoa, guy.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Is he?
We don't apologize either. Jesus, what's wrong with you? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
go
we're
ahead.
not Canadian. Oh, sorry, dumbass.
Yeah, actually, it kind of goes with the fucking clean Schmidt bullshit. But Illinois has a fucked up election laws, and one of the things is that now if you're a Republican or Democrat, you only need like 5,000 signatures on a petition to get on a ballot. But if you're a third party, like a Libertarian, Green, whatever, you need 25,000 signatures to get on the ballot.
What?
Yes, that is the rule. That's the law in Illinois to get on to be elected governor, lieutenant governor, so on. Now the
Serves them right.
Yeah. So the Libertarians actually they were supposed to get 25,000 signatures. They've got 47,000 signatures, but the Republicans are contesting it. Now and on top of it, the election board, instead of giving them 4 weeks to prepare, they gave them 1 week to prepare, and next week they got to defend all those signatures. So I wanted to do this for this guy because it's next week, every day, Monday through Friday. The Illinois Libertarian Party needs volunteers from 8:30 a.m. to roughly 5 p.m. Even if you can only do a half day, it's still valuable to come to Springfield, Illinois, to the State Board of Elections to help us defend signatures. The work is easy. It's just tedious. It needs to be done. They are counting on us not to have enough volunteers to take the time from work and staff themselves at the defense for the whole week. Now, we won this before, including the last election. It can be done. We just need that help. Anyone interested, contact me. This is Brian Lambrick. He's the chair of the DuPage Libertarians. Either an email, and I'll have the email. I'll put the email on the website, or call them directly at area code 708-420-8324. Yeah, they need help. They've got the Republicans are challenging the Libertarian ballots. The Democrats are challenging the Green Party and the Constitution Party. They've all got enough signatures to get on the ballot, but so now they got to defend it. Their lawyers are going to be down there to defend or to get those signatures voided. The Libertarians have there's like 10. If I understand it right, there are going to be 10 stations set up. They only got enough to fill 6 of them. They need 4 more people. So if you're in the state of Illinois and you want to help, this is an opportunity to defend third parties. I mean, or defend, because it really is the third parties. Everything's stacked up against them.
Yeah. I gotta tell you,
that's ridiculous.
I'm not a libertarian, and I probably wouldn't vote libertarian, but if we want to have a healthy electoral system in the United States, I still say you should go and support this guy to try to get third parties on the ballot. Seriously.
Yeah, they're trying to kill the competition here. They're not giving it even chance. I mean, it's not like the Libertarians or the Green Party or anything is going to win, but at least they should have a fighting chance.
Yeah, it's poisonous to the American political system to cut out the third parties.
Yeah. See, and even in Illinois,
listen to all of you.
Yeah. Well, see, even in Illinois, the Republicans and Democrats don't have to fill a ticket of the full slate. They could, if they don't want, like in Illinois. Everyone really likes Jesse White. He's our Secretary of State, and so the Republicans won't run anyone against him because they'll lose. I mean, it's a guaranteed loss. So they can take people. They don't have to field the full ticket. The Libertarians and third parties have to. So if they're going to run in Illinois, they got to have a governor, a lieutenant governor. Secretary of State, I think Attorney General, and one other, in order to get on the ballot or to even be listed. So even if if one of the petitions get rejected, all of them get rejected. So even if like the governor got the guy running for governor had enough vote or petition signatures. If the lieutenant governor didn't, he can't run. I mean, it's really stacked up against any type of third party. And so if you're in Illinois, you have to be an Illinois resident. So it's but if you can get to Springfield to help these guys out, it'll be great.
That's from the 14th to the 18th, you said?
Right, next week. It'll be Monday through Friday.
Yeah. By the time this becomes a podcast, it will not be next week, so we might.
But people might. We have people view our videos though, so.
Yeah. So hopefully, and actually they found out late too. So this is just a little extra help. Try to help out a little bit and get some people down there.
Maybe we'll next week we'll do a follow up and see what happened.
Yeah, he's supposed to give me some more information at the end of the week's or. He's going to give me some information Wednesday, so I'll have something on the Bitch Spot report about it, and then we'll talk about it next week on this show.
Excellent. So, speaking of shows, Mike, tell us what you got coming up on A Skeptic's Guide to Conspiracy and/or Bitch Spot.
The Skeptics Guide. I've gone through all the batshit crazy Illuminati insanity.
I bet you could find more if you really tried.
Have
You know what?
perused YouTube lately?
You know what? My brain is ready to explode. I mean, literally. I've got. I mean, depending on who and what. I mean, there's as many topics as there are conspiracy people, and I've gone through biblical prophecy. I've gone through. The political and the industrial and all this. And
Have you heard of a woman named Gabrielle Channa?
not yet.
Yeah, she has her own entire conspiracy theory because, well, you'll have to look her up on YouTube, but she is way out there. She thinks that the Jesuits run the world, that she's got a whole bunch of different celebrity husbands who've never actually met her, but she has mental sex with them, that the Jesuits have bombed Canada with an atomic bomb filled with Jesuit semen called a Nukkake bomb. People fuck with her because she's crazy. Like, I guess 4chan has taken her as a target and fed her all sorts of bullshit.
Is that a movie, Bukkake Bomb? If it's not,
Well, I like the. Yes, yeah. I like the. Apparently, the world's run by Satan. He's actually runs he runs the Catholic Church. He's in charge of the Catholic Church. The Pope doesn't run it. It's Satan. But Satan has control over the reptilian aliens, who control the gray aliens, who do all the dirty work. Extracting body parts. Collecting semen and eggs for their experiments. Right. Yeah, the anal probes, animal mutilations, whatever, and then, of course, also they send orders to the Illuminati to hide all this.
As you do.
Bill Gates has been ordered. What he's supposed to do. Ted Turner, the Rothschilds, the Queen of England, so on. So that's what I'm trying to be talking about, and then try to conclude the show. So it's been mind-numbing.
all right, dumbass. What's new and expected with you? And
Well, on
Amateur
the the latest Amateur Skeptics, we talk a little bit more about women's issues. Oh, did you guys know that there's a sex toy ban in Alabama that was enacted in 1997?
what?
That's outrageous.
I know.
Is that why they have the thing called the Alabama Shakes?
We did this story about a woman who's suing to end the sex toy ban in Alabama, and I looked it up. It's like, and it came in 1997. There are people in Alabama, 1997, and the law is still on the books that you can't buy sex toys in Alabama.
Huh. Is that a law that's enforced, or do you know?
I assume there must be ways to get around it, but 1997. I mean, I'm pretty sure it must be enforced.
That is surprising. Huh. So there's that. Interesting.
That explains a lot about Alabama.
Alabama Shakes. So, Mr. McElroy, you recorded your first episode of your new show. Tell us about that.
Yes. So, I think I mentioned it on last week's show, my girlfriend Susan and I are going through and reading through the Bible, and she has had very little exposure to the Bible itself. So it's kind of interesting getting her reactions to things. We got through the first 11 chapters of Genesis, and God, that was a slog. So we got through the creation, we got through the fall, we got through Noah's flood, the Tower of Babel, all that stuff. So it's good times, and it's a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to the first episode. Well, I guess that's going to do it for us for this episode, and we'll be back next week with something. We don't know what yet.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Take it easy then, and until next time.
Peace through whatever.
Peace through strength, strength through unity, unity through faith.
Yeah.
Freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength.
We all love Big Brother.
Mhm.
And Big Brother.
And
loves you.
remember, we all love Big Brother.
There you go. I was waiting for it.
Excellent.
And recording stopped.
We're still live.